Thanks, Matt. When I was at Bible college, I did Bible college after I finished my commerce degree, and they needed someone in their finance department. So, knowing that I had a commerce degree, they said, "Hey, we've got a job in finance. Would you like that?" So that's where I started. I started in finance there, and then I moved to Christian Heritage College, which is the tertiary education there, because they needed someone in finance up there. So I moved up there, and then I got invited to be the creative arts director at City Point Church in 1995. So it was my first full-time ministry role and pastoral ministry role. So that's when I met Andrew Ironside, got involved with worship. I was writing songs, producing albums for our church, song leading, and just building team and having the best time.
Wow.
So my wife and I were the leaders of that through 95 to about 2000. And then there was some change. So Andrew was coming in actually to take that role in the church, and I was asked to go and plant a church. My wife and I, we were asked to plant a church in Sydney.
Wow.
So we then went to Sydney and planted a church in Ryde, in the middle of Sydney, and then also got asked to take over another Christian Outreach Centre church, because the Christian Outreach Centre had about, at that stage, I think it was a few hundred churches, a couple of hundred churches around Australia, to take over another one in Sydney. So we had two churches running in Sydney, and we did that for three years, and then we got asked to come back to City Point into a different role. So we came back to City Point, and in that role, doing roles such as young families, and then when we met, I was overseeing the events for that. And so when we did events, I did a bit of voiceover because when I was in Sydney, I needed some extra work as a pastor to support my ministry. So I used to work for a company where I would do voiceover work.
Really?
Back in the day when people would ring up on and they'd listen to recipes over the phone or competition lines. So thank you so much for calling the competition line for your chance to win. So that was what I used to do to get a little bit of money on the side. And then so when we were doing ads, I would do some voiceover ads as well for our church.
Very cool.
Yeah, in ministry. And so we were that, and then we were in mission there. So I'm the sort of guy that we'd come in, we'd build something up, get the team together, and then we go, okay, on to the next. And so that seems to be where God had my wife and I building teams and setting things up in process. Yeah. And then there came a season when we were then invited to be the senior leaders of Clark's Taylor's church. He planted a church called Worship Centre, and then asked us to come over and take over the church, because he at that stage was really quite ill.
Yeah.
And the people he'd raised up had different callings that they felt to go out. And he's like, oh, okay, what am I doing? And then he prayed. A long story there, but in the end, we felt that was what the God thing for us, and so we joined Clark and then became the senior leaders of Worship Centre.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we were there for a number of years, and then transitioned to Alpha after 8 years. So now working with Alpha for the last 6 years.
Yep.
And I have the honour of overseeing our church engagement team. So we're the team that help churches and people understand what Alpha is, how to run it, and how to get the most out of it.
Fantastic, mate. We are going to talk more about Alpha because it's very dear to my heart, and I'm keen to talk more about Alpha, but I'm just going to backtrack for a bit. So Worship Centre.
Yes.
There was a guy named Andrew Cook there who was a missions pastor who worked with you, who took me on my first ever mission trip to Cambodia and Thailand, and absolutely transformed my life. There was a big focus of missions at Worship Centre. Tell us a bit about, because you travelled with him a bit.
Yes, I did, with Andrew. So I probably went to the exact same places that he went, because Andrew was our missions pastor. And what we used to do at Worship Centre, we would have a bunch of mission projects that we would do every year. And so the way we did it, we had people in our church that either had close connection or were involved in mission work themselves, and we'd have them all up on a board, and then we would tick them off as throughout the year as people felt led to give toward mission. We did fundraisers, and we did all sorts of things, from our local chappies in schools that we supported, right through to work in Cambodia, work in Thailand, digging wells in Philippines, all across the world, all sorts of different mission work. So I think we had about 20 different mission projects at a time that every year that we would focus on. So it was a real honor to be part of something bigger, that from where we were in one part of the world, being able to bless people all around the world with different things and the resources that God had given us.
And I remember Manny Pacquiao visited your church when he came to box at Suncorp Stadium.
Yes.
Did you get to meet him?
I did get to meet him. Yeah. He was such a generous and kind man. I couldn't believe it. A mutual friend had set up at this meeting, and I didn't even know who Manny Pacquiao was. So, but now I do. It's one of those things. So now when I meet a Filipino friends, they're like, Filipino, I go, I've met a really famous Filipino, and they say who? I say Manny Pacquiao, and I show my photo, like, no way,
wow,
you've met Manny Pacquiao. Yeah. So it was a wonderful time to have him with us, and preaching with all this press in front of us. That was I've never had that before as well.
That's cool.
You've had some experience with that, Matt.
A little bit of that, yeah. So cool. I remember going to Manny Pacquiao's Bible studies at a local hotel.
Yes.
So he was here for a week, and he had like 12 Filipino pastors traveling with him.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a good job? Travel with that. And every night they had a different preacher, and started with 100 on the first night, then 2, 3, 4. By the end of the week, there was like 1,000 people coming, and every night people got saved.
Yes.
And even after the boxing fight with Jeff Horn, he got up on that night, Manny Pacquiao, with his, black eyes and everything, and he got up and he shared his testimony, and it was so good. I mean, we need guys like him in the sporting arena as a good role model, don't we?
Absolutely. I love the way he really embraced his Christian faith and thought, well, how can I use what God's given me, which is influence in that space, to bring his kingdom and to share the gospel. And so, and he got, and Manny knew where his strengths were and where his weaknesses were, so he would get in other pastors, as you said, who would preach, who were better preachers, but he used his profile and his love for Jesus, and together they saw a lot of people's lives influenced. And it was great to be at those meetings there. I remember meeting you at one of those meetings. And catching up. It was amazing.
Oh, I just loved it. Well, it's so good to have you with us. Our guest today is Paul Skip Smith, who is part of Alpha Australia. We're going to talk more about Alpha soon. Skip, are you okay to lead us in communion soon?
I would love that. That would be an honour.
You came for that? Well, if you're able to join us for communion, all you need to do is get a drink and a bicky, and just prepare yourself. And shortly, Skip's going to be leading us in communion all across Australia. Hang around. You're on Sunday Morning Together on Vision.
I'll take a photo.